I did. I went this
In
year.
Nigeria?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I started directing because nobody would direct my plays.
I feel like Toby was very receptive to the offers that we came in with.
We can garner from you.
Kayla opens the scene. I googled you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Be Seen Director's Cut.
The immersive podcast that takes you behind the scenes to get an in-depth look at how directors bring stories to life.
What we're talking about, we're looking at protagonist and antagonist here actually. Kayla is the alpha female, which means she controls the space.
We get two professional actors to perform their version of a pre-selected scene.
It's nice. I couldn't imagine losing my mum as an adult.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, loss is loss, I suppose.
Then we show you how their performance evolves with feedback. Throughout the show, we break down the scene, get insider tips, and learn how to navigate the industry.
Do you find that there's ever any conflicts between like directing your own, like do you get precious about your own writing, or do you still find the directing process like another phase of discovery
It's
as well?
a really nice question.
With our guest Toby Clarke, an Olivia and Offie-nominated director, playwright, and acting coach at the Old Club.
This podcast has been brought to you by Lambda,
The oldest drama school in the UK and ranked by The Guardian as the #1 university in the UK for drama and dance in the 2025 league table.
Now let's get started. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. We have Toby Clarke, our guest director, and then we have Mahaila and Laura as our actors. So we're just going to jump into that because I was watching. Mm-hmm. And if you could just give me a taste of what it was like working with Toby, and then we'll go to Toby and see what we can garner from you. Yeah, so how was that experience in terms of from going from just bringing your own offers,
Yeah,
and then into kind of getting that redirection from Toby?
it's a way of working I really enjoy. I like jumping into a scene, not kind of wasting too much time talking about it at the beginning of the day. I know obviously some rehearsals run differently. You might spend the first part of the time kind of talking about the scene and analysing beats and objectives and stuff, but I actually really gets me out of my head if I can just try something and then tweak from there. And I feel like Toby was very receptive to the offers that we came in with, and kind of running with that just also put me at ease to be like, yep, okay, let's try some things, rather than kind of endlessly talking and intellectualizing things. I think it's really good to just feel it with your body and go with something. I really enjoyed that, and really great offers from you as well of giving us enough context of the characters to run with something or dig a bit deeper without getting in our heads about backstory or, character information. It was the right amount, I think.
Yeah, I think it was definitely really nice, the offers that you were giving us and the connection that we found.
Yeah.
And new discoveries there on the spot. No, I completely agree. It was lovely.
Hi, my name is Toby Clarke, and we're going to be workshopping a scene for a play called Rep, which I wrote a few years ago. The play is about 9 young offenders coming together to put on a play led by a white middle class director, Kimberly, played by Laura. This scene takes place in Act 2, where Kayla, being played by Mahaila, comes in to confront Kimberly about some information that she's just discovered about her. Hope you enjoy.
I googled you.
Digging for more ammo.
Funny, no. I found this interview done about
Yeah.
I googled you.
Digging for more ammo.
Funny, no. I found this interview done about a play you did.
Yeah?
Yeah, so anyway, you talked about your mum in it.
Yeah.
Is she okay?
No.
Shit, when?
February. She'd been poorly for a while, and I think she'd had enough.
My mum died when I was 8.
Yeah, I know.
Top of my file, right? Pushing by 12, in care at 15.
In so many words.
I remember my mum's hair and nails mostly, because she always done them real pretty and that.
That's nice.
I couldn't imagine losing my mum as an adult.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, loss is loss, I suppose.
Yeah, but you must know so much about her.
Yeah, I guess. I remember she loved The Archers. Oh, it's a Radio 4 drama type thing. It's a bit shit, but she loved it. That was her every Sunday morning for as long as I can remember.
Is that why you're so into theatre and that?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. Yeah, maybe.
I wasn't looking for ammo.
No.
I was looking for stuff for the arts qualification thing. The Who's Your Art Hero section. Just thought I could write about you or not. It's whatever. Why'd you have to make it more awkward for?
No, sorry,
It's dumb. I'll just write about Solange or something.
No, I'd really like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So, can I maybe interview you sometime?
Yeah, of course.
Like now?
Oh, I have this press night.
It's cool.
But I can cancel.
Yeah?
Yeah, let me just make a quick call.
Let me go get my folder then.
Lovely, thanks guys. Some really nice offers that have been there for you, so thank you for that. I think what's really integral in this scene is exploring the history of the relationship between the two characters to begin with. Because what we're talking about is we're looking at protagonist and antagonist here actually. Okay. Kayla is the alpha female in the group, which means she controls the space. And what you really need to know in order to inform this scene is the last time these two were in a space together, you were trying to tear her eyes out. Okay, because you've got best friend Jade, who's been almost excluded from the course, and so that's what's actually happening in this scene. So despite the fact that you were listening beautifully to each other and you were connecting really nicely with each other, the scene actually is almost the opposite of that. It's about the disconnection that's happened between the two of them, and the severance of that as well, and the ground that needs to be covered in order to arrive at a place where finally you do get to ask for Kimberly to be your hero. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal based on where they actually come from.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that context is important.
Exactly. So although the choices you're making are great, what I tend to use and what I bore my acts with continually is the idea of a bold choice. And a bold choice is simply the choice that gives you and your character, you as the actor and you as the characters, a really even more significant struggle. If you find that struggle and you sit in that struggle, and I'll talk about sitting in that struggle a bit more, it creates even more conflict. Okay, so can we just look at the first beat again? And actually, so can we just be sitting in the fact that in the history of the relationship, you two have not gone at all. There's also a fear factor as well, Kimberly, is that there's a physical threat in Kayla as well. The reason that she's done it's called a YRO, a youth rehabilitation order, and the reason she's in there is it was through violence actually. That's why she's in there. She beat the shit out of someone. Okay, but she had her reasons.
Yeah.
But it still landed her a YRO, so there is just something physically threatening in Kayla as well that you're aware of, have experienced previously. Okay. I'm going to shut up and let's just have that first beat again. Okay.
Would you like me coming in again?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Just don't forget. So I guess the succinct note is that just don't let the words come out so easily.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you need to find that connection because then you've got further to go, and then we've earned an even bigger payoff at the end of the scene.
Yeah.
Let's see what doesn't happen, what isn't being said in the scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Toby, could you just tell us a little bit about you, about how you actually got into directing? Did it start? Because a few of the directors that I've interviewed actually started from acting initially and then transitioned into directing. But how did your journey start?
It's a funny thing because, again, I did another interview last week and they asked me, so they were like, how does your directing and your acting coaching as a profession, how is that impacted by your role as an actor? When I told them I didn't act, they were quite surprised. I also remember telling my son at 6 years old that I'm not an actor, and he's like, I don't understand. You taught me how to ride a bike, and you can ride a bike, so how can you teach actors how to act or direct actors if you haven't acted yourself? I've never had any interest in it, so I came through in short, I started directing because nobody would direct my plays. So I started as a writer, as a playwright, all the way back in Jurassic period, 2000. So I wrote a play back in 2005 and sent it to a few theatres, none of whom took any interest in it. And then I approached a few directors, none of whom took any interest in it. And then went home one day. I was with my brother, younger brother, and he was like, well, then why don't you just direct it yourself? So I fell into directing that way. But in terms of, I guess, refining my craft, I worked since, I think, 2006 in youth theatre. So I've been very blessed to work with some incredible organisations. Oval House, now Brixton House. Funny enough, well, we recently did Rep last summer as well, the play that we were workshopping. National Youth Theatre, Lyric Hammersmith. And so I learned, although I did do a year at drama school, I didn't learn anything. I'm not going to list the drama school, and I do, but it was only a year, it was a master's, and it was just sort of forming, it just trying to work itself out. So I didn't really learn very much. But what I did do in going to that drama school is I found myself walking through the doors of Oval House Theatre, where they very kindly supported my early stages of my career, and I got to work with so many young people, and I sort of tested willing young people that were just wanting to be in a room and learn and develop and explore ideas, collaboratively. And so my process and my techniques basically came through that, as working as head of youth arts at places and National Youth Theatre, these sort of places. Yeah.
Just so that we can kind of get an idea of both of where your heads are at going into this, what were your initial thoughts about your characters, and how did that change when Toby gave you your feedback?
Well, I feel like for me, I felt that Kayla does have an interest to Kimberly, but I think the fact that, her mum died at such a young age, so there's a lot of kind of, what's the word, like, traits that she has about herself that she isn't kind of able to speak about so openly, if that makes sense, if you guys get what I'm trying to say. And she likes her, and she's trying to work her out, and I don't think she even knows why she's kind of drawn to her in a way. And I think what is really lovely about this scene is how like dynamic it is, and like from the top of the scene, when you was breaking it down for us and you were saying that the last time that they met up, it wasn't very good. So this is like an olive branch that Kayla is giving to Kimberly, but doesn't know how to go about it. And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that she lost her mum at such a young age, so she didn't really have anyone to kind of teach her how to be a particular way. And then, she eventually formed some sort of relationship, whether it is like a motherly figure in a way, from Kimberly.
And from reading Kimberly on the page, I got a sense of quite a strong person. It doesn't give much away at the beginning. She's slightly on the back foot just at the beginning of the scene, because there's this, we learnt today a bit of what that context was of their previous meet, but obviously just reading the scene, I wasn't sure exactly what had previously happened with Kayla, but there's definitely a sense that she's on the back foot with her, a bit on the defensive, a bit threatened by Kayla, kind of potentially digging into her life and her private life particularly. And I think I definitely got a sense of a person who separates like her professionalism from her private life, and that with her things that are private to her, she can be quite guarded. And she is dealing with a fresh grief. So obviously anything when you're reading on the page, trying to look for information about your character, something that's that massive is obviously a gift to an actor, because you're looking at that and going, well, that's something juicy that I can be having on the inside. Obviously, she doesn't necessarily play it out, or you're not going into a scene where she's in a room sobbing about her mum, but that all is inside her still with that fresh grief. And I think, as an actor, I like looking out for things like that are completely universal experiences for us all to understand, because those are the stories that I'm drawn to as a watcher and a consumer of media and art. Like I like being able to see those characters that are going through something, and something that we can relate to.
And sorry, I just wanted to add as well, like that's why I thought it was so interesting that Kayla opens the scene, I googled you. I googled you.
Digging for more ammo?
Funny, nah. I found this interview done about a play you did.
Yeah.
So I want to pause you there. I'm going to do quite a little bit of this as well. So don't forget, I'm a big subscriber to Sanford Meisner, who I'm sure you both heard of, and he said when he was with us that dialogue is the last thing to happen between actors. So even the moment that you come in, there's a physical language that you can share with each other before you even say your first line. So can we just like sit down and explore that to begin with, actually? Just go from that entrance. Thanks. You can start telling the story before you even say any words. So you can spot her there, Kimberly.
I googled you.
Digging for more ammo?
Funny, nah. I found this interview done about a play you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, you talked about your mum in it.
Okay, let's pick it up from funny. Thank you very much. And think about your statuses as well. You have the highest status because you're leading the room, but you're an alpha. So let's put you an 8 out of 10, and let's put you an 8 out of 10 as well. And try not to be complicit with each other either. Make it difficult for each other. Either fight for each other, because you have an intention, you have an intention. You see what I mean? So don't be afraid to actually, there's a great practice called John Wright, he would always say, just put the other actor in shit. There's always a negotiation when it comes to acting. You're not going to hurt each other. In fact, let's just say that you're not even going to touch each other in this scene.
Yeah.
And no one's actually in any imminent physical danger.
Yeah.
Anything psychological that happens between the two of you is all part of the play.
Yeah.
As well. So
yeah.
be cruel to each other.
Yeah.
And make each other feel uncomfortable as well. Okay. And and to help with that, Kimberly, so why don't you're almost giving her too much attention as well.
Yeah.
So why don't you just stack these chairs? Let's give you an activity. You have to get all these chairs stacked and placed there. Okay.
I googled you.
Digging for more ammo?
Funny. No, I found this interview done about a play you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you talk about your mum in it.
Yeah.
Is she okay?
No.
Shit. When?
February?
Great, and pause there. Very good. Feel all right? Much better. Now I want to come, there's two things I want to introduce now. The first thing is time. So we've looked at a relationship between the two of you, and time is really important in this scene. The reason that time is so important in this scene is because it takes place in Act 2 when audiences start shifting their seats, for one. So basically what I call is basically just get to the end of the play, because that's what the audience are wanting. They're wanting the climax of the scene, or they want the resolution of the scene, and so on and so forth. And a 90-minute play is going to need that. So I want to apply some urgency to the scene as well. Yeah. Okay, and as always, I always say text is royalty, which means we have to allow certain facts of the scene to inform it. So it's all. So I could also say just do it fast. I could say just do it faster, but I very rarely give pace notes. What I'd like you to bear in mind is that Kimberly, which gets revealed later, is off to a press night.
Yeah.
And let's say that she's late for that press night. Okay, so we reset the seat, reset the chairs, and go from there and see what that does. Because again, that's going to make it harder for you again, Kayla, because of tempo. So small and fast.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? See what that happens. Get to the press night. But bear in mind, what I'd like to then eventually arrive at is that no scene should ever be one tone. So I like my scenes to have a sort of roller coaster effect.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that there's going to be these gear changes.
Yeah.
You call them, I'm sure here in drama school, you call them events. Something major happens which changes the tempo, intention, energy, pace of the scene. Okay, so just bear in mind that it's going to go somewhere else. But to begin with, let's crank it up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. 3, 2, 1. Press up.
I googled you.
Yeah. Digging for more ammo?
Funny. No, I found this interview done about a play you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you talked about your mum in it.
Yeah.
So is she okay?
No.
Shit, when?
February?
Pausing there, and that text is very good, really nice, really nice. So just bear in mind, I want to move on, but just bear in mind that allow for their behaviour to affect your behaviour. If you've come in with the intention of just, because when we've got this darting around and this energy and all these lots of different targets, destinations that are playing here, she's ignoring you. How dare she ignore you? You've come with an olive branch. She doesn't know that yet, but you know that.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So again, it's creating a really nice conflict and barrier for you. So how is Kayla going to rise to that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only on there. But now I want to talk about mum as well, because that's where our event is and that's where our gear changes.
Yeah.
It's all about acting, it's all about discovery. So in the moment where you reveal, you talk about your mum in it, we've discovered that she's discovered about your mum.
Yeah.
Okay, and what other circumstances of mum did you decide? What sort of questions? Again, we didn't really do facts and questions, but what other, if I would say what has happened to your mum?
I think she had a long, protracted illness, probably something like cancer.
Yeah.
And I was probably quite involved in her caring, and towards the end, saw a lot of that, lots of hospital visits. I think with a long, drawn-out illness as well, it just makes it harder because there's conflicting feelings around. I found it interesting the way she phrases it, like she'd had enough by the end, that there's that conflict in herself, that there was almost a relief when it finally, the grief is kind of mingled with
Really nice.
there's a relief that they finally kind of stop suffering, I suppose.
Yeah, I love that, and I try and frame. I try not to dominate rehearsal rooms first and foremost, and the best way of doing that is asking these questions.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is that those answers you arrived at were not my original intentions or facts of when I wrote the play, in a good way, in an actually positive way. So it's really lovely that you've unpicked all of that for yourself and made it resonate with you. And then I just basically roll with that.
Okay.
For instance, how recently did Mum pass away? Could you make that choice?
So she says February, so it must be the same year. Let's say 3 months ago.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, so well done. So the play takes place in July. Okay. Actually, so I deliberately put it so that it was just so it's a real lot, despite the fact that it was inevitable, her death, because she was in palliative care, and you're absolutely right, and you were her carer. So I didn't use you were her carer. That's great. That's really strong, because you've raised the ante and you've raised the stakes yourself actually, and you've put different images in your head, which is fantastic. So I absolutely roll with that. Okay. That's really good. It's very strong. In fact, if I ever direct the play again, I might even just bring
Oh, great.
So yeah, that's great. So yes, and then we've got Kayla and Mum as well. So again, what it is so when I was writing the play, I had to ask myself, how am I going to get these two forces to link up and find something shared? And that's when it finally hit me. The only way that's going to happen is if I find something that is universal to all of us, which is grief. And that's why I found that, obviously, because what's going on with Kayla's mum? What did you decide?
I decided that she committed suicide. Yeah. Okay. And I think that a lot was hidden away from Kayla in terms of like her upbringing, and she didn't necessarily see the bad moments that her mum, or the dark times that her mum experienced. Like, hence why I thought it was so interesting that she brings up the fact that the thing I remember most is how like my mum looked after herself, you know?
Her nails, right?
Her nails and her hair, always pretty, like always on point. So I think she put on this image that she was okay, you know, like this super mum that Kayla looked up to.
That's really nice. These sort of rose-coloured tinted glasses that you remember.
Yeah.
That's
and she wants her memory of her mum to be left like that, I think.
That's great.
Yeah.
She eventually does a beauty therapy course, Kayla, at the end of the play. No spoilers, but yeah. So again, so see the segue. So again, but it all came in the discovery, actually, because I tend to discover as I'm writing as well. So I found the beauty therapy. I was like, oh, what can then be Kayla's resolution? So
That's
the final
lovely.
resolution, it might be worth knowing the outcome of these two characters. That they do share the final scene, and you've written a reference for her for a beauty school. Okay. And so she starts doing a beauty therapy course, for instance. So again, it's all very mum linked. Do you see?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So let's just now tell that story. So again, although it's coming to the space for the first time, again, there's lots that's bubbling around just in the mentioning of the mum.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you've got your mum. And just as a final proposition or offer, just think about how hard it is to talk about grief anyway. You two are not friends. You're enemies, actually. Okay, and you're opening up. This is the one person you would open up to your friend. I've forgotten the name. Jade is your best friend, so you'd open up to her about it. But you know, even still, there's because Kayla lost her mum so young, there's just these barriers, these emotional barriers, and these masks that she puts on, and this alpha nature that she inhibits constantly, which is an act as well, because there's a vulnerability to her as well. And suddenly you're being vulnerable, but that's not going to be easy either, to talk about your mum and also talk about your mum.
So the journey from Oval House and that kind of setup that you received in your early stages of transitioning into directing as a writer, but there must have been some work that you had to do as well as a writer before you got into directing. And how did that come about in terms of getting to a place where you can write something like Rep that's so meaty for actors to kind of dig their teeth into?
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy one because I'm Kimberly, so I used to run. So so for my work at these venues, I used to work with young people, neat young people not in education or employment, or they were young offenders and been through the judicial system. So I used to run programs in different venues.
So you're
as
Kimberly.
well. Yeah, pretty much. But the reason, obviously, so in order for not to get too egotistical, I made her a female character as well. But I came from obviously a white middle class background for one. Before I moved to London, that was my experience. I had private education, so on and so forth. And it's only when I came to London that I got really wonderfully exposed to so many different cultures and identities, and young people that come from the backgrounds and the non-privileged backgrounds that I benefited from, as an individual. So, but this was the first play that I'd written that was based on my experience. Every other play that I'd written is based on stories stories that I don't know anything about. So usually I use my plays as a way of discovering stories, discovering other things about other identities and other cultures and other experiences. And I use that as a task. And my third play was set in Nigeria, and I'd never been anywhere near there at that point. I went this year.
Nigeria?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's like and it was all about Islam as well, and Sharia law, and so I had to spend like 2 years in the library and researching it. So I spoke to lawyers, and spoke to Nigerians, obviously, to get an understanding. So my protagonist was a Nigerian-born British.
So what play number is this?
I couldn't tell you. Probably number 6 or 7.
Okay, because I mean, did you study as a writer? Because writing isn't easy. Do you know what I mean? It's not easy.
No, I've always written stories since I was 12 years old.
Okay.
So that's why. So it's just something, and I loved English lit at school. I was very lucky that I had a wonderful English and drama teacher. So he combined the two of them. So when we were doing plays or doing stories like Of Mice and Men or any Shakespeare song, so it was always very active and practically explorative. So it's lovely. So my passion for stories, started at 12 years old. Okay. But I've never been taught anything. Everything I've learned is from experience. Okay. Yeah. I used to lecture in playwriting at a university, which is hilarious because I'd never been taught how to playwright. So I had to. And I've read books. Right. They're a wonderful book. That are out there.
How to playwright.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to be. It's a great book. I think it's Tim Fountain. It's like it's literally called So You Want to Be a Playwright. So literally, when it came to me teaching playwriting, I would just read all of these books. Same with Meisner. It's like I had to teach Meisner at National Youth Theatre, knowing nothing about Meisner. And at my interview with Anna Nyland, she won't mind me saying because it was fine in the end, but she was like, so we need to teach Meisner as part of the course. And she's like, so you know about him? I was like, absolutely. Yeah, big fan. And then I read a book by Nick Mosley, Meisner in Practice, to learn how to teach who Meisner was. And then I taught it. And now I use it in my rehearsal process.
Well, I'm intrigued as to this relationship between like writing and directing and how you see it, because, some people just direct. They keep that process completely separate with the writing. They inherit someone else's words and then they, put their spin on it. Do you find that there's ever any conflicts between like directing your own, like do you get precious about your own writing, or do you still find the directing process like another phase of discovery as well?
It's a really nice question. In fact, no. In fact, I was advised early on by a director who was actually at that point, because I'd written a few plays and they'd done all right. He was fishing to try and direct one of my plays, and he sort of said, we went for a drink. Like, I don't encourage directors to write, to direct their own work, because
it's unusual.
he sort of said they
because they'll direct the play they think they've written, which is true. There's some extent in that, but actually because I hope what you've sort of gained from the session, I think, thank you guys. Well, it really was, I know I've said it off camera, but just on camera for the record. I think these are the couple of actors that I love working with, so thank you for bringing them, Marion, because again, I do believe that it's a shared collaboration, and because I sort of worked in devised theatre quite early on, I tend to write with actors, so the play itself, although the stem of the idea came from me and my experience, all the characters like Kayla, like Terence, and all of the young offenders, that was sort of written with the actors. So we sort of devised it just pre-COVID. So again, they sort of brought their experiences, what they know in terms of family members that they happen to know, or you know from certain backgrounds, or just growing up in London, which I didn't have the luxury of as well. So they brought a lot to the writing, and so we tend to work. So some of the scenes were improvised, then I go away and sort of craft them that way. So it's still very much, I wouldn't say actor-led, but there's still a major component of when I write. I don't tend to do that very much.
So if you were going to go back and revisit a play you'd already written and like kind of rehearse it anew, would then that also change the text as well, or would you feel that the text was quite fixed?
It really would, yeah. So actually, to give a shout out to Lambda, so the second version of Rep, it was done, Bolahan directed it, and it was done, here, and it was different to how I directed it, because all the characters brought their own flavour and their own version of the characters. Well, in the same way that you guys brought your version, you brought your Kimberly, I brought your Kayla. Yeah. And far be it for me to step in and go, well, actually, no, Kayla's kind of like this. Yeah. It's not really,
That's really refreshing, because I think sometimes as actors, if you hear about, like, for example, we're going to have the writer in rehearsal today, I think the instinct of actors is to go, oh God, because the writer is going to be, they're going to have the ultimate vision and ownership of their words, and everyone else is just a layer of interpretation. But with somehow with writers, we sort of venerate them to be like the people who know, and it's actually like it's still a collaborative process.
I don't think it's very healthy for that to come in. Although I only came in for one day when Lambda were doing it, and lots of questions were thrown at me by the cast, and most of it, and I wasn't even like passing the buck or dodging any bullets. I just sort of said, what do you think? How do you feel about Kayla? What do you think she's after in this scene? I just basically set out. I just play can sometimes be seen as just ingredients that's always going to keep you on the same. It's always going to keep you on the same page, on the same the same journey, because the words won't change. But that doesn't mean that certain intonations or different flavors are going to appear throughout as well.
Going off of that, what are some things that actors do in auditions that we should try to avoid?
Tell us.
I wasn't looking for more ammo. I was looking for stuff for the arts qualification thing. And who's your art hero section? I just thought I could write about you or not.
Want to explore it and keep it on that collaborative. I did a class last night, and there was just this tension in the space. It's like, chill out, relax, let's fail, let's mess up.
What's happened actually is that Kayla's, you've figured her out her whole life actually, and her whole career, and that's what's wonderful about it actually. So I think we can even maybe let's put a little bit more weight on that. So you figure it out yourself, and then, do you know what I mean? Make that as an offer, as in, is that, well, I get it. You're still framed as a question. But actually it's like, on my days, you just realise because of the archers and the drama, that's why you're a director.
Yeah, that relationship of power is interesting. It's like sometimes we create that, actually. We create the problem because we put people in a position of power over us.
I want to say a massive thank you for everyone that's tuned in to watch this podcast. This podcast is all about empowering you, the actor, upcoming director, creative, or film fan. Everyone's welcome. If you'd like to see a particular guest director on the show, please let us know in the comment section below, or send us an email. And if you'd like to be a guest actor on the show, please also let us know.